Hi, I'm Christian, and you may not know this about me, but I love a good treasure hunt. Sometimes you'll get riddles or clues that you need to solve to get to the treasure, and then sometimes you'll get a sound that you need to identify in order to find what you're looking for. So in today's God story, we're going to see that if we listen to God, we'll also find something very special. Let's see what it is.
Isaiah prophesied about a baby that would be burned. No. Hey everyone, Liza here. I'm so happy to be back with you again this week. And I wanted to share a story with you about my best friend in the whole world, BB. And no, she is not a person, she's a cat. Years ago, after much convincing, my parents finally agreed to let me get a cat of my very own. But I wasn't allowed to just pick out any cat or the first cat I saw. I had to wait until I found the right cat. So I agreed. So we went out to a rescue agency, and at the time, there were just no cats. We went to a few other agencies, kept looking around, and I was starting to get a little discouraged. Then one day, we were dropping my brother off in a different city, and we stumbled upon a rescue agency and thought, let's just pop in, just in case. And sure enough, there she was. She had the smallest, roundest, fluffiest little face, and she has extra claws on her paws so they look like mittens. And when I asked the employee to take a look at her, he said, oh, trust me, you don't want her. She's the runt of her litter, and she doesn't get along well with the other kitties. So, of course, me, always rooting for the underdog, or in this case, would it be under cat, was like, sold! And now, 8 years later, this cat is literally my best friend. She brings more joy to my life than I ever could have imagined. And that reminds me of this week's big idea. When we listen to God, we discover His love, and we come to know that His love for us is greater than anything we could imagine. Previously, we talked about a prophet, a person who speaks on behalf of God, named Isaiah. Isaiah prophesied about a baby that would be born to a virgin. And fast forwarding 700 years into the future, we learn that the girl is Mary. Mary also visited her relative Elizabeth, who was really old when God helped her become pregnant. And this is what happened next. Elizabeth gave birth to a son, and her husband named him John. Everyone knew that John was going to be a special baby. Zechariah was given a prophecy about his son. Zechariah thanked God for keeping his promises, and about John he said, "And you, my child, will be called a prophet of the Most High God. You will go ahead of the Lord to prepare the way for him. You will tell his people how they can be saved. You will tell them that their sins can be forgiven. All of that will happen because our God is tender and caring. His kindness will bring the rising sun to us from heaven. It will shine on those living in darkness and in the shadow of death. It will guide our feet on the path of peace." What an amazing thing that God spoke through Zechariah about John. Zechariah said that John will tell people how they can be saved and that their sins will be forgiven. And when John grew up, that's exactly what he did. He pointed people to Jesus in just this way. So, after John the Baptist, oh yeah, he gets called the Baptist later in life, but that's another story for another day. There was a law created by Caesar Augustus, who was the ruler at the time, and he said that everyone had to go back to their family's hometown and be registered. This was just a way of keeping track of how many people lived in the country. Joseph, you know the guy who was engaged to Mary? He was from a town called Bethlehem, also known as Town of David, and that's where he had to go to be registered. So Mary and Joseph traveled from Nazareth in Galilee to Bethlehem in Judea. That's over 100 kilometers of traveling. And no, they didn't have a car, they didn't have a train, and didn't have those fancy sneakers with the little wheels in the heel. Let's read what happened next. While Joseph and Mary were there, the time came for the child to be born. She gave birth to her first baby. It was a boy. She wrapped him in large strips of cloth. Then she placed him in a manger. There was no room for them in the inn. So Mary gave birth and had to lay Jesus in a manger. That's like a trough where animals eat from because there was no other room for them. And at the same time, just outside the town, God sent a message to some shepherds. But the angel said to them, "Do not be afraid. I bring you good news of great joy. It is for all people. Today in the town of David, a Savior has been born to you. He is Christ the Lord. Here is how you'll know I'm telling you the truth. You will find a baby wrapped in strips of cloth and lying in a manger." Just imagine being the shepherds and seeing an angel come down right in front of you. I don't think you would need any convincing about the message if it was delivered by an angel. And then just hearing the incredible message that the angel shared. Let's keep reading. Suddenly, a large group of angels from heaven also appeared. They were praising God. They said, "May glory be given to God in the highest heaven, and may peace be given to those he is pleased with on earth." The angels left and went into heaven. Then the shepherds said to one another, "Let's go to Bethlehem. Let's see this thing that has happened, which the Lord has told us about." So they hurried off and found Mary and Joseph and the baby. The baby was lying in a manger. After the shepherds had seen him, they told everyone. They reported what the angel had said about this child. All who heard it were amazed at what the shepherds said to them. But Mary kept all these things like a secret treasure in her heart. She thought about them over and over. The shepherds returned. They gave glory and praise to God. Everything they had seen and heard was just as they had been told. Imagine how cool it would have been to have been Mary holding on to baby Jesus, or the shepherds who saw these beautiful angels and then got to see baby Jesus. God loved us so much, he sent Jesus. And like the shepherds who heard from an angel of God, when we listen to God, we too can discover his love. All right, everyone, that's it for this series. I had such a great time hanging out with you. Thanks for having me, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.
Quickly turn to the person next to you
and answer the following questions.
Question time. What do you imagine it was like to see baby Jesus?
So the shepherds followed the message that they got from the angels, and they acted on it, and they found Jesus, the Messiah, the rescuer, God's pure love. So let's watch Anna's story to see how she experienced God's love when she desperately needed to hear from him. Watch this.
I grew up in an awesome family with two parents and two older sisters, much older, as I would joke, who loved me very much unconditionally. Also, growing up as a pastor's kid, I got to learn about God and his love for me. But the older that I got, I realized that I didn't really understand what that meant on a personal level. And as I got older, I became more broken in the lack of a relationship with God until I reached a point where I needed to hear God say he loved me. I'm Anna. I absolutely love music. I love vacations in the sun. I am not a winter person. If it could be summer 24 hours, 365 days a year, that would make me a very happy person. My dad was a pastor and a musician. We would love to sit and sing with him, and he had a really cool knack of making each of us feel like we were special and unique. He was everything to us. It sounds silly to say, to put that much into one person, but he was the one that we went to with our problems, and to lose him felt like we were losing a big part of our lives. I felt the loss of a very special relationship. I felt the lack of love in that sense. I think even as a kid, I was always drawn to music. I knew that I could sing, and was very quickly affirmed by others that this was a gift, and felt like this was my way to get closer to God. I saw opportunities come up in church. We were quite a big church, and so there was opportunities within youth or young adults, or even Sunday mornings to lead. And as much as I saw what I wanted, it never seemed within my grasp. Every time that I made steps forward to follow a dream or to say this is what I want to do, I always felt like doors kept shutting in my face. I guess I felt like I tried to attain something, and I felt like I was doing all the right things to get there. I was a good person. I was a good Christian. I read my Bible. I was extremely involved in all areas. And yet, it didn't matter what box I checked off, it wasn't enough. It felt like it was never enough. And yeah, I got to a place of saying, I can't do this anymore. I am tired of feeling like on the inside, I feel rejected and never good enough. I feel like I'm a hot mess, and yet I'm constantly trying to portray someone to everybody else that's perfect, that has it together, that is good enough. And I got to a place almost like a breaking point where I couldn't take it anymore. And I remember just having a real honest moment with God and saying, I know you're there, but I don't know you. And I almost gave God an ultimatum that night. That feeling of, God, I will give you everything, and I will open my heart up and my life up to who you are, and I will be obedient to listen to you. But in return, I need to know that you love me. And had a night of watching God come in and wash away all of the garbage that I had kept inside for so long. All of that pain, all of even the grieving of not really being able to let go that I didn't have a physical dad anymore. The feelings of rejection, I watched God wash that away and in its place give me such a peace that I'll never be able to put words to. As I was laying there with my eyes closed, I saw a picture of two eyes with fire in them. And I remember being startled, thinking, what is this? And hearing so clearly for the first time God say to me, this is my love that burns for you. And in that moment, it was the first time I understood what it meant to be his kid. That it wasn't about a checklist of things I needed to do for him. That at the end of the day, my identity wasn't found in being a perfect pastor's daughter or being the best worship leader or even in my singing abilities. At the core of who I was, my identity was found in being his kid. And that's all I needed in that moment. And for the first time, I understood his love. That was the night I finally sat in front of my keyboard and wrote my first song called A Father's Love.
Question time. What stood out to you in Anna's story? How did she discover God's deep love for her?
Anna is so talented. She has the most amazing voice, and I know her personally, and let me tell you, she is the nicest person ever. Anna was at a place where many people find themselves. She did everything that she thought God wanted her to do, but she didn't have that personal relationship with God. When things got really tough, Anna cried out to God, and that's when she experienced his love, and that changed her life. Let's break up into our small groups and see how this looks in our own lives. Peace.